You've never seen it?
I've never seen it.
Oh, my.
Colin, today begins another year of my picks for the list. I've decided to pull 6 films, each from a different decade, starting this month in the 1920s and ending in the 2020s.
Man's too good for the 1800s. I see how it is. Can't have the Great Train Robbery or train pulling into station. What a fucker.
As we take this journey from the days of tinted film and puppetry into our modern day and its dystopian digital landscape, I wanted to consider how humanity's darkest moments have shaped these stories. How long have we humans suffered from the relentless need to oppress en masse? How can we live with the knowledge that people can so easily, with the right figurehead or the right financial incentives, turn innocent people into enemies from within? Have we faced these challenges before? And if so, can they ever so much as be changed? And can we as people be changed? We'll discuss all these questions and more as we dive headfirst into these first days of the decades of darkness.
In case any of you thought we weren't political enough, you may want to back off now.
There's a long storied history about how many silent films were lost to time, due either to general flammability of old film or the systemic propensity to burn old reel-to-reels instead of saving them.
Well, I mean, yeah, no, there's the obvious nitrate aspects that you already brought up of nitrate film just inherently being this hazardous thing, and then there's the whole thing of anytime a war happened and we needed something like silver, you're going to go ahead and just burn all of these old film stocks up for the sake of providing more like stock for the war effort.
Today's film suffered additional hurdles to its preservation with the addition of international restrictions and outright bans on this film, here in the US particularly. And the eventual spread of Nazi Germany will be a further hindrance on saving this piece of film history. Somehow, against all odds though, this film is actually in fairly decent shape, and today is available for our consideration. Would you like to break into my first rendition of The List Season 4?
Now we're going to be watching the Disney Plus Artemis Fowl adaptation. All right. Getting all this stuff off your fancy box. You're cleaning this shit up later.
I will.
Tony, how would you feel if I've seen half of this?
Oh my god.
It's not on. He checks my Letterboxd every time. It's not on Letterboxd because I didn't finish it.
Okay.
I don't remember much, but Haxan.
Yeah.
I know the imagery from this movie.
Let me just break into it real quick then.
Yeah.
Today we'll be watching 1922's Scandinavian silent film Häxan. I was going to ask, do you have any fucking history with this? But apparently you watched half, didn't finish it.
Well, yeah, because I don't know. I was
Just not in the mood for it.
yeah.
In
I don't know. It's like I don't even really remember in particular why I turned it off. Probably for a similar reason you made me turn off Trip to the Moon. Because you were tired. And I was trying to show you art! Yeah, I don't really have any specific memory why I turned this off, but I believe this was on HBO Max. And I watched half of it, and I don't really remember much, to be frank, so.
That's fair. I mean, this is one of these films that I got because it sounded interesting. The presentation on the box obviously looked interesting. It sat around for a little while. Eventually I broke into it and I said, I really like this fucking movie. Benjamin Christensen, today's writer, director, and devilish co-star, initially wanted to focus on opera singing and stage acting until his voice began to give out back before the 1920s. He would eventually see Albert Cipollini's rendition of Les Mis, and that would change his position on movies and their potential as an art form. According to an essay by film studies professor Laura Horak for the San Francisco Silent Film Festival, Haxan was intended to be part of a trilogy of movies that would experiment with the idea of a movie not made of the base elements of movies like heroes and heroines and evil doers, but more of something different. This one is more of a semi-documentary. The last two films would never get made because the scope of this one would just balloon to become the most expensive Scandinavian film at the time. That is according to the British Film Institute. This film would prove to be a challenge to create, to market, to get seen, because governments around the world saw it as dangerous and scandalous and too provocative. And here in the US, it was just outright banned for that sort of reason. There are a few versions of this film available out there, but today we'll be watching the 2019 Criterion release, as it would appear to be the most authentic and true to original version of the film. It's pre-tinted according to the director's specifications. It's got accurate intra-title cards that have been restored and translated properly. And it has a 2001 rendition of the original premiere score arranged by Gillian B. Anderson and performed by the Czech Film Orchestra. Notably, there is also a much derided 1968 cut of the film that was released here in America. We are going to skip over that one due to it's generally lauded as like taking a lot of the stuff out. And
Did you watch it?
no, I've not watched it yet.
You should watch it. You should watch it and get
I've seen parts.
your history.
I've seen parts of it, but
Yeah.
I've skipped over it just because generally people think that it's been kind of like chopped way down and it's not true to form. Without any further ado, here is 1922's Häxan. So Colin, here comes the part of the show where we generally do the plot synopsis. Do you want to go ahead and take it away?
This is a I wouldn't even call it a documentary thing. I also wouldn't call it cinema verite. It is taking the documentary form and presenting a bunch of scripted, either historical or, I would say, probably scripted historical fiction kind of events, or historical nonfiction or whatever. These are sort of pieces of like little micro stories used to spout an overall theme. I would more so call this film an essay than a traditional narrative.
Yeah, it's semi-documentarian essay style sort of thing. It's ahead of its time in a lot of ways.
And the opening of this movie uses lots of sort of Middle Ages like illustrations to illustrate the cultural perception of witches at the time within the general public, especially with how the church and the leadership presents it to the public. We get perceptions of hell and the kind of punishment you'll receive for that kind of stuff, the fascistic systems that are in place in order to perpetuate this sort of fear-mongering. And then we get 2 to 3 narratives sort of showing what it is to be accused of this sort of stuff within the era. We get the punishments that are involved that would lead to a lot of these more than likely probably hysterical confessions out of people, and how that form of torture doesn't actually get any real facts across. And the narrator / director / actor in this movie goes on to then state his general thesis.
I think that breaks it down without having to go like part by part. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good synopsis. Colin, I'm gonna ask you now, did you like the film? And is there anything about it that you really want to jump into just to start with?
No, I really enjoyed this. I guess sort of the primary thing I would really like to get into are sort of the layers that you could peel back of intentionality versus unintentionality. There is the intentionality, which is, this is skepticism back when being a skeptic meant something that wasn't being like an Alex Jones alt-right troll on the internet.
Yeah, back when skepticism wasn't completely bastardized and burned alive by the internet.
Yeah, it used to be a general movement of people being logic-based and science-based before facts don't care about your feelings was a mantra of morons. Basically, it's a film that's sort of proposing this hypothesis by the end of, what if everything that we've been shown in the past that has sort of been built on fear-mongering is just exactly that, fear-mongering for the context of its times. You know, explaining to the audience how people believed what they believed at that point about spirituality, about the church, about Satanism, and about all these various things that maybe, even at the time when this came out in the 1920s, over in Sweden, wasn't exactly something that was fully accepted by everyone. And then it simply asks you the question, of all these women that were sort of brought forward, tortured, and most of them killed, burned at the stake, were any of these women guilty of the crimes that they were accused of? Or is the more likely answer that this was a society of men ruled by the patriarchy, ruled by the rules of the church?
Yeah.
And was this a gigantic literal and figurative witch hunt designed to sort of literally kill any women with an ascending opinion on whether or not the patriarchy should be a thing, whether or not, you know, traditional marriage and relations should be a thing, whether or not we should have our own rights to say whatever the fuck we want.
Yeah.
And while I think it's sort of asking that question within the context of course, witches weren't real, I do also think it's not exactly putting into light, because of the time it was made, the ideals of paganism. And that sort of culture, which is, hey, maybe even if witches were real, and sort of like the real life sense of like it was a separate, you know, social / religious group and movement exclusively for women.
Yeah.
Who gives a shit if people were fucking the devil in the woods? Unless, of course, you introduce the fact that maybe when you have a woman who's deciding to have sex with Satan in the woods, you no longer have control over her.
Exactly. I think that's one of the broader messages of this sort of thing, is using superstition and fear-mongering, like you said, to control people in a very direct and specific way. And it goes to great lengths to explain each and every pillar of this system.
Yeah.
Going as far as to like show all these, in the intro, the part 1, showing all of these like these documentations and different forms of showing how people thought in medieval times, and the days and ages leading up to that, almost presenting them like almost scientific documentation, like this is what people would believe genuinely, like 100%, that of course the earth or the sky will be held up by metal pillars, or of course God resides in the 10th orb, this is how it works.
And of course, even like the most basic thing, Earth is the center of the universe, and everything else surrounds it.
Yeah. And whether or not people in general believe these sorts of things, the really main point is that people in power can use it to enforce their power, to say, there is a world beyond yours that you cannot rightfully explain or understand. Here's the limits of our understanding, and from outside the limits of our understanding, the devil, in this case, or some form of evil, can leak into the people within our societies.
Or even crazier, the devil is within our very soil that we live upon. Hell is beneath us.
Literally, yeah.
Making the earth itself sort of fertile feeding ground for the devil, and we have to eventually send to the status of being with God above us.
And that's why we must find all the unbelievers, all those that would practice something other than what we say, or would believe something other than what we say, or even skeptical of the world that we're trying to put forward. We must find and torture and eliminate them for the better of our society. And that's kind of like the whole overarching thing. And it goes through painstaking detail to like create this world that holds up that belief system. I have a whole segment here about like oppression by any other name, and it kind of came to mind, especially in the month or so leading up to this, because behind the cameras, me and Colin went on a little bit of a tangent watching Hunchback of Notre Dame adaptations.
Yeah, for those of you who are not aware, because I'm not sure really how much I've talked about this on the show, I love Victor Hugo. I love all of the Victor Hugo adaptations and how his work has sort of spawned all these various adaptations in like different forms. Obviously, I've not read the book Les Miserables because it's bigger than the fucking Bible. But you know, I've read Hunchback of Notre Dame. I'm in the process of rereading it right now for the first time in years. Obviously, you know, on this channel, if you watch any of our videos, I fucking love Phantom of the Opera. I love the novels. I love so many different versions of it and how that story has stayed culturally relevant throughout all these times and everything. I, of course, love the musical. Andrew Lloyd Webber's musical is like one of my favorite things in the world. Seeing that in May, fucking really, really, really excited.
Yeah.
And with that, it's like Andrew Lloyd Webber sort of goes out of his way to sort of make these systems about sort of like systems of oppression within our world and how those work and how religion controls everyone. But then on top of that, he goes out of his way to highlight, especially in future adaptations of stuff like Hunchback, the man or the woman or the person or the whoever who has been ostracized and outcast from society simply from looking different, acting different, or having a different belief structure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just crazy how the parallels just line up one after another with this story from a totally different country. Granted, it's fairly close in time scale to that in Notre Dame, you know, closer obviously than it is to today, I think.
No. This is 1920s. I mean, you know, if you're talking about like the real life story.
Yeah, the real life story of the movie, which happened in like anywhere between the 1200s to the 1500s, if I'm right.
Yeah, but that's just the systems of oppression at work. You know, that's as much as like I as a person do believe humanity, we do have the capability to rise above our most innate animal instincts and become better than that, and you know, hopefully one day form a society where none of that stuff needs to be worried about. I'm not saying we're gonna live in Star Trek, but you know, that's the goal.
Yeah.
I'd love to one day not have to think about all that shit. Not right now, unfortunately. Very, very much not right now. But it's it is one of those things to where I do believe that's the case, but it is always interesting then to sort of understand that these cycles of oppression are not anything new. Before we formed civilizations and after we formed civilizations, human beings are apes, and we're angry and brutal, and a lot of times we don't get along, and we're tribal, and we form all these separate tribes, and instead of deciding to help each other, we decide it's easier to cast aside anyone that doesn't agree with whoever we decide to put in charge.
And it is very easy in any society to shift blame onto an other group in order to keep yourself safe.
Yeah.
Like that's one of the main things that follows throughout all of these sorts of stories from, you know, the days after World War I, the days leading into World War II, you know, anytime really you could just slap any marginalized group into the place of witches in this film, and it would pretty much line up. You could find those same columns that support a system of oppression.
Yeah, and even then, keeping yourself safe isn't the reality.
Yeah.
That's those in power. That's the excuse. That is the reasoning they give to the people, and they put on these gigantic fear-mongering like parties, and they ostensibly just convince an entire public that these are the people you should be afraid of, instead of, you know, the people in charge who are making you afraid of your neighbors.
Creating an enemy from within, once again.
Yeah.
And, you know, you get people in a room and you do things to them that the general public is not allowed to see. If you torture them well enough and for long enough, they will say just about anything and everything that you want them to do.
Yeah, no, and sort of that like faux documentarian thing that I like about it is sort of going, and like I picked up on this, and I was, you know, paused for a second talking about this being like, as long as you make a person confess under the state of torture, they'll do whatever the fuck you want. And then the movie proceeds to then go and piece by piece go through every single like item within the torture chamber from these stories that we're seeing, even to the point of like one of the actors being like, let me try one of those.
Yeah, the thumb screw, because I saw this little thing, like, that can't be so bad. And then like the second it starts doing its work, it's like horrible.
Yeah, no, it's some gnarly fucking shit. Even things that don't seem that bad until you actually like think about the kind of pressure you're being put on. Even something like fucking your legs being tied down between two posts of wood and pieces of rope. You split a fucking post between those.
Oh, yeah. The last part is probably the most horrifying out of this whole horror film.
Yeah.
And it's just depictions of what we as humans have already done. It's the least falsified thing in in this entire movie, which kind of leads me into this discussion of it's something that the internet thinks is so new and fresh and all this sort of thing. Colin, have you ever heard the phrase unfiction before?
Yeah.
You've heard it before. Do you want to take a crack at like describing it briefly?
I can't remember if I know the definition off the top of my head, but it's kind of taking, I guess, generalized real world things. I don't know. It's sort of like nonfiction. Wouldn't it kind of fit into that?
Yeah,
I can't come up with a definition, I guess, off the top of my head, but it sort of fits into that nonfiction definition.
Yeah, it's been defined a couple different ways. Obviously, people will like lump things that are kind of similar all together and say it's all this. But I really think at its core, it comes down to the difference, or like splitting the difference between fiction and nonfiction, where nonfiction works are explicitly based in the real world and real history. Fiction works generally are working from explicitly non-real place, right? Heightened reality, all this sort of thing. Unfiction is, at its most boiled down, a fictional story that kind of relies on convincing the audience, at least for a time, that the story that they are telling is true or non-fictional.
Yeah.
It has become sort of synonymous with like ARGs, as many of them use like codes and games and other forms of audience participation to like get you into that mindset. But it's not really a requirement for something to be unfiction. And I think this movie is exactly the key to like the very beginnings of that sort of thing, as far as I've found.
Even then, I mean, I don't know. I feel like maybe you could have some kind of like further back. I'm sure there's some stuff with stage plays.
Oh, definitely.
That did that kind of stuff that predates this kind of shit.
Oh, I'm sure.
I don't know. And I mean, the example I have in mind that isn't necessarily the first thing I've watched, or definitely not the first thing you've watched, is that one video I showed you that I can't remember if you said you'd seen or you'd like knew the guy who made it, was that one ARG of the guy talking about that Lost Dinosaur video game.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Sagan Hawks. Yeah.
No, that video is fucking. Really,
that video is very, very good.
Yeah.
And like this movie, he kind of only gives away that it's a game at the very end.
Yeah.
And a lot of the fun in that one, and a lot of like what gets you involved is this way of like trying to convince you that it is kind of real, you know?
Yeah.
They'll give little tips and hints for people that, you know, are familiar with these sorts of things, that, okay, maybe this is not quite, but that's sort of what makes it so engaging.
And I mean, on top of that, if you're going in thinking that it's just some kind of an essay being entirely, like entirely sort of portraying in a narrative way these like real life events, you get people like me who didn't realize the entirety of the runtime that the video was bullshitting you. And that's really fucking great. I would say it's like the step after that would then be cinema verite.
Yeah.
When the audience sort of like having an awareness of like how something functions, but still asking themselves, is it though? Yeah. Is this weird? You know, obviously we have directors like Orson Welles with the film we watched last year, F or Fake. But then we also have people like Matt Johnson, whose entire career is built off of the modern, weirdest fuck interpretation of cinema verite, of involving real people in situations that they have no idea that they're being filmed, or if they do know they're being filmed, like in something like Operation Avalanche, which is a movie about characters in a fictionalized scenario working for the government trying to work on faking the moon landing.
Yeah.
They went into the real NASA offices for the Apollo 11 missions, talked to people that are older that actually worked on the Apollo 11 missions under the guise that they are filming an in-costume documentary about Apollo 11, asked them questions that led them into getting the answers that they wanted.
Yeah.
From the actual people who worked on Apollo 11, but framed it that these are people right now working on the Apollo 11 mission.
Yeah, thus breaking down the wall between reality and fiction.
And because like that wall then ceases to exist, you have an old man talking in a way an actor never fucking would.
Mike, do you remember mentioning test locations that NASA was using for photography? Would you mind showing me those pictures?
You mean on camera?
If you don't mind.
I don't mind.
This is places that look like the moon on Earth?
Exactly. Those were called geology field trips.
And that is so much more interesting than hiring some old actor and asking him to act authentically. You can't fucking do that shit.
And obviously, you can achieve this sort of effect using any ratio of like real to fake information, whether that fake information was provided by you, you know, creating some sort of prop for the thing that you're filming,
Yeah.
or by just history, changing things to fit a narrative that they want to kind of like create.
Yeah.
My favorite example of this is like the Iron Maiden. It would turn up in museums, this big, terrible looking fucking device that say, oh, people would be tortured with this millennia ago. But it's just a big metal box with spikes in it.
Yeah.
And if you closed it, you just kill someone instantly.
It's not torture.
It's
an execution device. It just looks grisly as fuck.
Yeah, and people believe that it wasn't even a thing that was actually created back then, not for the sake of torture or for execution for anything. It was just made to make your museum look bigger.
Yeah.
And that's sort of like taking advantage of that, and also your own falsified information alongside real historical things can uplift this story and create this unfiction narrative. There's like a short list of things I think people could look up if you want to, like, if you're interested about this sort of thing, or you just want to delve a little deeper into the topic. You know, you got things that are obvious, like the Blair Witch Project does this sort of thing. Cloverfield and its pre-release ARG, that's obviously a whole thing. Stories like Ted the Caver and C.K. Walker's Baraska, those are really good that you should check out. One's just very historical, very old, and the other's like genuinely actually been made into a novel. It's very nice.
Yeah.
You know, let's take this away from like the technical side and let's just talk about some shit that we haven't gotten to so far. What's your views on the acting?
Before I get into, I guess, like standout performances, I will go into something that I think is really often overlooked. There are several films from the modern horror genre that are kind of taking a lot of cues from this. You know, I'm looking at you, Ari Aster and Robert Eggers, these two A24 often collaborating horror directors, where it's like they will take visual cues from this, but it seems like kind of miss the point. The old homeless women in this movie look decrepit, but not because they're being portrayed as gross, evil monsters, but because they're homeless and cannot bathe and have to stay on the streets and be dirty and they're starving. I guess stuff that I don't like as far as a modern horror movie trope is not using old people to be creepy, right? It's just the use of old person who looks, I guess, slightly, like not the normal standard of like plastic surgery beauty that we expect from old people, I guess. and then we like display them as this inherently evil like monster, which feels like weirdly like backwards. I have no problem with the Sam Raimi Evil Dead hag. That's my favorite, but that's silly. When you're making a movie like, I don't know. I haven't seen The fucking Witch, so I'm not gonna go and be like, Robert Eggers did this, this, and this. But I've just heard some stuff, and whenever I hear some people talking about that, I'm like, okay, whatever. It's what it is. But with this, I guess the thing I really like is they go and they hire these extremely old women. Who clearly have just a lot of life experience prior to this filmmaker fucking existing at all, and they're bringing a lot of that to it, and they're kind of using their aged bodies to show just how fucked up some of the shit that the system itself is doing to them. You know, it's like, obviously you brought up while we're watching it, just the whole like cavity search shit. Where they're trying to like go through all this, and you just kind of see an old woman
being stripped naked.
And it's just
degraded.
It's degrading, but it's doing it with these old people who ostensibly have the wherewithal of defensive children, you know. I guess the one person in particular that continuously stands out to me is, I think her name is Marion. And she, throughout the film, is constantly othered by other members of the cast simply for existing and not having stuff like table manners because it's the first meal she's probably had in like a month.
Yeah.
And she's stuffing her face with this and eating like an animal because to them, oh, you're demonic if you're not eating here and then saying grace before you eat.
Yeah, it's just finding the first person that looks outside of your fucking world and placing all the blame for everything that's wrong in your world onto them. And,
Yeah, while putting aside your own good Christian supposed morals.
Yeah, exactly.
And deciding, oh, okay, well, this whole fucking thing, that shit doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. That doesn't matter because this is a witch and this person poisoned or put a spell on my husband.
And now you will burn for your crimes, that whole fucking thing.
Yeah.
And seeing Maren Penderson, I think, stands out the most. That, once again, like you said, her face is like very haggard and it's very all this sort of thing. But her eyes still...
Haggard, I feel like, is an insulting sort of thing. I don't think she's haggard. I just think she's world weary. She's seen some shit. Her body is used.
Yeah, that's the better way of putting it.
Yeah.
Thank you. And her eyes still shine with this sort of thing of like, yeah, I've seen what the world does to people and I see the world for what it is. And that's kind of the thing that would, strike fear into the eyes of these scared people and what probably scares the shit out of the government system that is oppressing her and people like her.
I.e. the church.
Yeah, the moment that you get a little too wise, whatever time frame you're in, the powers that be will fucking strike you down.
It's not even getting wise. Like, all they're doing is expressing the most bare bone independence outside of their spouses or outside of the rules of the church. And then, like, with the homeless people, because she's homeless, all it is just like, it's a woman who... whether she's directly involved with this pagan cult or not, that doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
Like, she's literally just been, like, asking for help from these people, and some of her pagan sisters have offered her seemingly shelter and food to eat, and she's going and telling these church people whatever the fuck they want to hear so she can be pulled out of a fucking torture device.
Not knowing, or maybe still knowing, but hoping against all hope, that she's still gonna get fucking executed, even if she confesses.
Well, at the very least, an execution is an end to it all. She's old enough, and at a certain point, not having to live in this fucking god-awful, forsaken society anymore. I love, first off, all the demon actors. They're just having so much fucking fun being disgusting, decrepit pieces of shit. But then the actor who plays, I don't know if it's necessarily, it feels like whoever Lucifer is kind of changes.
The devil, yeah. Christine. Christinsen.
Yeah. No, he's played by the lead director. He's fucking great.
Oh, yeah.
He's great. They know how to use fucking shadows and high contrast, like black and white cinematography to really just hide any kind of, like, strings they could be using to fucking, like, hold the background together or whatever, and he just has a really great, disgusting presence. Yeah. While also having, like, this... maybe this isn't the correct word, but I would say sultry.
Sultry, jovial. Yeah. Kind of like... yeah, he's kind of like... it has, like, this energy of being sort of fun and playful, even though he is the ultimate evil that people are trying to convince you of. Yeah. Yeah, which builds like. But
it's the fact that I guess he's naked to me is like kind of the big thing with that. And when I say sultry, it's like he's constantly rubbing his body, and I don't mean this in like a joke sense. It's like he is presenting this sort of freedom that the other characters don't have, and it's like he's almost inviting them over, saying like, if you just like free yourself of the shackles of this religion that keeps you under during fascism, come over here. I got a fucking party, bro.
Yeah,
we got an orgy going on. It's fucking sick.
Yeah. Which is why that guy is depicted as the ultimate temptation and devil, and someone that you should avoid at all costs. Yeah, and it's just really, really good. That kind of leads me into where he's kind of shot a lot of times a little bit farther back in shadow, so his face is like
I know, and it plays into one of my favorite fucking horror tropes of all time, which is the out of focus person just kind of tantalizing you, having you come here. There's one shot of him in the doorway in the church where he's doing the fucking finger thing.
Yeah.
Telling a chick to come over into the door right before she goes and stabs the Jesus cracker.
And then there's this other thing that silent films do. I was trying to get into this a second ago. Silent films do this a lot, which makes me want to like get into more and more of these, is the close-up on people's faces is so fucking beautiful, dude. It's so genuinely great to see like so much detail over like people like crying, for example.
Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck it is. It's like magic. It doesn't look real. Whether or not they like actually are just crying on set, or if there's like some effect or illusion made to make it look like people are crying, it's like it sparkles, and it gives you this chance to see people's face in a very close and intimate sort of way, where a lot of the other acting is a little bit closer to stage play stuff, where you have to play for the nosebleeds, you have to do exaggerated movements so people kind of get what you're getting at, what you're saying without words. With the intimate shots, it just makes them look so much more fucking beautiful, bro.
There's both, I would say, craft explanations for that, and then I'm also going to say there's psychological explanations for that.
Yeah.
When most of your film is shot in wides, as a result, when a really, really tight close-up does happen, your brain has a completely different response to it. You know, it's like, imagine watching a stage play where everyone is emoting super loud. Like you said, it's very stagey and acting. And then suddenly a big screen turned on right behind them.
Yeah.
And then suddenly during this big, like, emotional moment, an actor was able to, by comparison, tone it down a bit. And you're able to suddenly emphasize that single tear falling down their face. Editing, the way shots are assembled, the decision whether or not you're going to put stuff in a close-up, it's a superpower you have as a filmmaker. You know, if as a filmmaker you're deciding to break everything up into coverage and then choose what you're gonna do later, well, then you're not making choices. You're giving yourself an unlimited amount of options to then comb through later. And because there are no choices being made up front, how deliberate your filmmaking feels then proceeds to not work. And then we can also get into stuff like nitrate versus celluloid and how shots were lit back then versus now. You know, in modern shots, you can have something that maybe looks just as beautiful, but like, I don't know, if we're gonna get into the whole like digital versus film photography thing. There's the whole argument between Tarantino and Roger Deakins. Roger Deakins is one of the best cinematographers who's ever lived, but recently just said fuck it to film because, as he says, film is a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And if I have the ability to shoot on digital, I'm going to do that. And I get that. We're shooting on digital right fucking now, obviously, because why would we... why would we do anything else?
Yeah.
But that being said, though, because film is both finite, but also film needs to be planned, and film needs to have all of these sorts of like factors involved in case something goes wrong, you end up being a lot more careful about what you choose to shoot, how you choose to shoot it, and how you're going to light it, because a well-lit scene only comes from experience.
Yeah.
You know, Tarantino has talked about like, oh, well, you know, the reason you're choosing to shoot film over digital at the end of the day is because you're fucking lazy.
Yeah.
And I agree and disagree with that to a certain extent. To light a scene on film, like I said, it requires experience and effort, and time is money. And it's the business side of film creeping into the art side of film. And I got my own feelings on that you've heard enough on this fucking show.
Yeah.
But with that being said, what you're talking about, there's the aspect that it's a nitrate shot movie because it takes place because it was made in the 1920s.
Yeah, 1922.
Yeah, 1922. So, you know, it's shot on nitrate, has a lot higher silver content in it. The scene is shot to very specifically, we have all these big emotions, but we are now going to cut into a close-up because we need to emphasize this so fucking much. It's a lighting technique. You know, it's why you have like the noir shot where women's eyes and it like has this like fuzzy Vaseline effect around it.
Yeah.
It's done specifically there to just emphasize the beauty, or in this case, the sorrow of the human face. Yeah. In silent films, that stands out so much more, just like I said, because you're watching a lot of wides and suddenly here's this person's face, and if you're watching this in theaters projected 45 to 50 feet onto a gigantic screen in front of you, it's meant to be arresting. Yeah. That's why you're having an emotional reaction.
Yeah, it's meant to be magical.
Yeah.
Why it feels fucking magical.
Yeah.
They spared no expense when making this fucking thing to make everything feel magical, and that goes as far into set design and effects.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, the effects are fucking great.
Yeah.
There's one shot in particular. There's a breakdown of it. I think the same Phil professor from earlier did a whole breakdown on this sort of thing. Where normally, if you wanted to shoot someone flying, you might do something like film on a moving train, and you'd have the background going way fast, and you'd either superimpose the person onto that frame, or you'd do something like that.
Rear screen projection most of the time.
Yeah, what they did was insane and really, really cool. So they built a giant scale model of a town on a carousel.
Yeah.
And they had about 20 men who would turn the thing around and around in a circle. And it made this like really weird and unearthly effect. And they would just project onto that these various shots of all these different witches flying by, and it's tons and tons and tons of unique shots.
Yeah.
And it just makes it seem like Jesus Christ. And they use that same sort of care, like down to every last little detail. All the torture devices, if they're not real things, they look real, and they're put together very real, and they all look very real. There's the shot with like the fucking skeleton horse walking around.
Yeah, no, that's fucking...
That's insane. And I know it's probably just some dudes under there making it, but it just comes out of nowhere, and it's fucking mysterious and great.
And it kind of adds into that whole thing. I've seen some people, when I was looking at Letterboxd reviews and stuff, talking about this, talk about it as a horror, and they bring up those scenes in particular. I'm like, I don't find any of those scenes scary. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean that as an insult towards the filmmaker. I don't know, they carry a similar whimsy that Disney cartoons of the era do. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know, I find a lot of that stuff where instead of it being this, like, absolute image of horror, you have all these, like, Satans and these devils and these demons and everything with all these women and everything, and just kind of having a good time, and then circling around them is like a skeleton horse. It has like a whimsical quality to it. Yeah. That I think works super well. And even something like them sacrificing a fucking baby. Mm-hmm. Saying that's whimsical is fucking weird, but
it fits.
Yeah.
It fucking fits, bro. Jeez. And now, underneath all of these wonderful visuals and all this good direction and all this great acting, there's one thing that's sort of missing. Something that's just... it's just that last little piece. I don't know what it is.
It's a silent film, so there ain't no music.
Oh, no! A historical piece like this kind of deserves, in my mind at least, classical sounding music. The same sort of stuff that like you would just compose normally, like orchestra. If you got to shrink it down to just the piano, then so be it. Yeah. But you got your strings and your these classical pieces. You could either compose something for the film meant to be like played at every showing if you got the budget and the time and the wherewithal, I suppose, or you could use cue cards and just say, hey, this is a big emotional moment. This is like a close, intimate moment, and there's like a book of pre-written stuff from fucking hundreds of years in the past that you can play and that sort of thing.
And that can have some varying results. I would say that's probably the least professional outside of a lot of modern fucking public domain releases of most silent horror films that just stick a singular stock track that loops for 3 hours.
Yeah, cut to any, us trying to find a good version of, what is it, Nosferatu on YouTube, where just some people would just put, shit that does not fit. So I'm going to tell you something. I don't know what goes through people's minds to think that it would be a good idea to put 1960s upbeat jazz with fucking vibraphone and all behind this sort of fucking thing. I can kind of see the idea, I can kind of see it with something that you were touching on earlier, that it seems a little bit more whimsical than horror.
Yeah.
If you were like doing that in good conscience, then I think that could actually maybe work.
Yeah.
You know,
it's
more
like what was it, like the song "Mama" by My Chemical Romance. The imagery I get in my head whenever I see that is a jazz nightclub in hell.
Yeah.
You got someone on an upright bass fucking doing that shit. So to me, it's like, I don't know. It's like you bring up like, oh, 1960s jazz. I don't know what they're thinking. I mean, it's a choice, but if it works, it fucking works. So I don't.
From what little I've seen of the 1960s re-release of this movie, commonly known as Witchcraft Through the Ages, I think it was not done in good faith at all. It's that movie is generally just derided, like I was talking earlier, as like a massive disappointment, as like kind of flattening the narrative for many reasons. Like, for example, it replaces all of Christensen's intro title cards with like voiceover, and they just kind of go off of whatever is on the image, and they just flatten over the intent of the thing. They're smoothing over the story structure and making it into more of like a traditional documentary, quote unquote thing, question mark. Cutting the runtime down by more than 30 fucking minutes. And then on top of that, you kind of like add this totally unfitting and totally just upbeat and vibraphone-esque full like Jetsons sounding motherfucking soundtrack. And it kind of goes back to the thing that happened when this was released, is it was viewed as too controversial and too like scandalous.
I know why this was banned.
Yeah.
Like there's the obvious reasons you can give within like sort of just the country, and it's kind of like fucking just patriarchal view with like the church and everything going on. There's witchcraft, there's like nudity, but in reality it's the more fascist result, which is this movie could give people ideas. Let's keep that out of the public consciousness, but blame it on the things that the very movie itself is like talking about.
Yeah. And I still recommend, I guess, and I should watch the whole thing. I've watched parts of it. I haven't seen the whole thing. I would recommend,
just out of morbid curiosity, to watch.
Yeah. And luckily, that is also available on this release.
Yeah.
They have, I don't think there's a separate disc, but I think in there
It's probably on the bonus features.
Yeah, it's just in the bonus features, I believe. But basically, they released that. Once again, Criterion is all about like historical accurate Criterion.
Historical preservation.
Yeah, thank you. And that sort of thing. So it's always good, I guess, to have every option open and available to those who are curious about it.
No, fucking Scenes from a Marriage, the Ingmar Bergman Swedish miniseries is a masterpiece, and it's 6 hours, and it's from the 60s and 60s or 70s. Can't remember off the top of my head. Put it right there. But with that being said, when it was released in America, I think they cut it down to a 2 or 3 hour theatrical release.
Yeah.
And some people prefer that, but I don't. To me, it's like it's 6 hours of people talking in small rooms to each other. I don't need a fucking cut down version of what is supposed to be that smaller, but they included on that fucking release of that Ingmar Bergman box set, so I don't know. I always just give people the option to fucking be able to view that kind of shit, so you can see both, like, oh, this is how it was meant to be seen, and not even, oh, maybe this person would like enjoy a shorter version, but this is what happens when you fundamentally fuck with an artist's piece of work.
Yeah, this is how history has treated this piece of history.
Yeah.
And it's one of these things I would recommend. Go pick it up, or if you can, I think like Colin said, this version might also be available on HBO.
I don't know, because it's at one point I know this was on HBO Max. It's a TCM title because it's attached to Criterion Collection. This is probably still available on Criterion Channel, not 100%. You could probably stream this a bunch of places. I don't know. It's
Just find it, watch
just
it.
fucking find it, Google it. It's easy.
Yeah. And with that said, thank you all for helping us kick off a new season. Thank you for helping me kick off my half of the season. Tune in April as we jump forward in time to 1969 as we travel to the other side of the world where even sand and sunshine won't stop our descent into the decades of darkness.